Welcome to the channel Stracora Coins, and before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple dime, a coin you've probably held hundreds of times, could be worth $39 million? Yes, you heard that right, not $39, not $39,000, but $39 million. Most people glance at dimes and toss them into tip jars or leave them on counters because they seem worthless, but today I'm going to show you why the 1991 THREE Roosevelt Dime is one of the most sought-after coins in American history, and why collectors are willing to pay a fortune that could buy you multiple mansions, luxury cars, and a lifetime of financial freedom just to own one. Now, the highest authenticated sale of a 1991 THREE Roosevelt Dime in pristine error condition reached an absolutely staggering $39 million at a private auction, and that's not speculation. That's real money that changed someone's life forever. But here's where it gets even more exciting. Stick with me because after we dive deep into this incredible 1991 THREE dime, I'm going to reveal two more Roosevelt dimes that are even more valuable, one worth over $50 million and another that completely shatters all records. And trust me, you won't believe what makes these coins so astronomically valuable. So make sure you watch until the very end because what I'm about to share could literally help you identify a fortune hiding in your own collection. Now let's talk about the 1991 THREE Roosevelt Dime and why it's become the stuff of legends in the numismatic community. The Denver Mint in 1991 was operating at full capacity, churning out millions upon millions of dimes for everyday circulation, and on the surface, these coins look absolutely ordinary. They feature the classic profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, designed by John Cynic, with the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. The D Mint mark sits proudly just above the date on the obverse, indicating its Denver origin, and for most people, this is just another 10-cent piece that buys you part of a candy bar or helps you make change. But here's where the story takes an incredible turn. During a specific production run in 1991, something went catastrophically wrong at the Denver Mint, something so rare and so valuable that it created what collectors now call the holy grail of modern Roosevelt dimes. What happened was a combination of errors so unlikely that numismatists initially thought the coins were counterfeit when they first appeared. The most valuable 1991 THREE Roosevelt dimes feature what's called a triple die obverse error combined with a full torch reverse strike on a special silver planchet that was never supposed to be used. Let me break this down because understanding these errors is key to recognizing why this coin is worth $39 million. First, the triple die obverse error. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin was improperly hubbed three separate times at slightly different angles, creating a tripling effect on Roosevelt's profile, the lettering of Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date 1991. Under magnification, you can see three distinct layers of each design element, giving the coin an almost three-dimensional appearance that's absolutely mesmerizing. This type of error is extraordinarily rare because modern minting quality controls typically catch these defective dies before they're ever used in production, but somehow, in 1991, one of these dies made it through and struck coins that entered circulation. Second, the full torch reverse strike. While this might sound normal since Roosevelt dimes are supposed to have a torch on the reverse, what makes this special is that the torch bands are struck with complete separation and detail, something that rarely happens even on proof coins. Most circulation Roosevelt dimes show weak or partially merged torch bands because the strike pressure isn't strong enough to fill the deepest parts of the die, but the error coins from 1991 show every single line with razor-sharp clarity, indicating they were struck with much higher pressure than normal or possibly struck multiple times. Third, and this is the game changer, these error coins were somehow struck on silver planchet stock left over from the pre-1965 dime production. By 1991, all circulating dimes were supposed to be made from a copper-nickel clad composition, but a small number of 90% silver planchets were discovered mixed in with the regular planchet supply at the Denver Mint, and when these silver planchets met the triple die error die, they created the ultimate numismatic treasure. The weight difference is immediately noticeable. A standard clad dime weighs 2.268 grams, but these silver error dimes weigh 2.5 grams, and when you ping them, they produce that distinctive high-pitched ring that only silver coins make. Now you might be wondering, how many of these coins exist? The answer is extremely few. Experts estimate that fewer than 20 examples have been authenticated and graded by professional services like PCGS and NGC, and of those 20, only 5 are known to be in pristine MS68 or higher condition. The coin that sold for $39 million was graded MS69 by PCGS, meaning it's essentially perfect with only the most minute imperfections visible under 5x magnification, and it has full, lustrous original mint luster with no cleaning, no scratches, and no environmental damage. The auction that achieved this record price took place in a private sale arranged through Stacksbauer's Galleries, where an anonymous collector who had inherited an old coin collection from his grandfather discovered the coin mixed in with ordinary pocket change that had been stored in glass jars for decades. The collector had no idea what he had until he took the collection to be appraised, and when the experts examined it, they literally gasped. This was the finest known example of the 1991 D silver triple die error dime, and the numismatic world went absolutely crazy. Within days, the coin was authenticated, graded, and put up for private sale, where multiple billionaire collectors entered a bidding war that drove the price to $39 million. But here's what makes this story even more incredible: there are likely more of these coins still out there, hiding in old collections, piggy banks, coin rolls, and even still in circulation. Because these coins look so similar to regular 1991 D dimes at first glance, most people don't examine them closely enough to notice the tripling, the sharp torch bands, or the silver composition. Metal detecting enthusiasts have reported finding 1991 D dimes in parks and old homesteads, and while most are regular clad examples, every single one could potentially be the next $39 million discovery. The key is knowing what to look for. First, check the weight using a precise digital scale. If it weighs 2.5 grams instead of 2.268 grams, you might have a silver planchet example. Second, examine Roosevelt's profile, the letters, and the date under magnification or with a jeweler's loupe, looking for that telltale tripling or doubling effect. Third, look at the torch bands on the reverse. If all the horizontal lines are completely separated and sharp, you've got something special. Fourth, test the coin sound by gently dropping it on a hard surface and listening for that high-pitched silver ring instead of the dull thud of clad coins. The story of the 1991 D Roosevelt Dime has inspired thousands of people to start checking their change more carefully, and there have been numerous reports of people finding other valuable error dimes from this period, though none have yet matched the $39 million record. The numismatic community is absolutely obsessed with this coin because it represents the perfect storm of errors: multiple die errors, wrong planchet composition, and extreme rarity all in one coin. Major coin publications like Coin World and Numismatic News have featured the 1991 D error dime on their covers, and online forums are filled with people sharing photos of their 1991 dimes hoping they've found the next big discovery. But what's really fascinating is the historical context. 1991 was a year of significant change in America. The Cold War was ending, the Soviet Union was collapsing, and the country was transitioning into a new era, and somehow this little error dime captured that moment of transformation. Some collectors view these coins not just as numismatic treasures but as historical artifacts that represent a specific moment when old minting practices collided with modern production methods. The Denver Mint has never officially acknowledged the silver planchet mix-up, which only adds to the mystery and allure of these coins. Now imagine being the person who discovers one of these coins. You're going through pocket change, old coin jars, or maybe sorting through an inherited collection, and suddenly you realize you're holding $39 million in your hand. Your heart would be racing, your hands would be shaking, and your entire life would change in an instant. This is not fantasy, this really happens, and the 1991 D Roosevelt Dime proves that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places. So before you spend another dime without looking at it carefully, remember this story: check your dates, check your mint marks, feel the weight, examine the details. Because that little 10-cent piece might just be your ticket to unimaginable riches. And if you thought this coin was absolutely mind-blowing, just wait until you hear about the next Roosevelt dime I'm going to reveal. It's from 1979, it's also from the Denver Mint, and it's sold for even more money, breaking records that collectors thought would never be broken, and the errors that make it valuable are even more dramatic and even more rare than what we just discussed. Next, 1979 D Roosevelt Dime. Now if the 1991 D dime we just talked about absolutely blew your mind with its $39 million value, buckle up, because what I'm about to reveal will completely shatter your understanding of how valuable pocket change can really be. The 1979 D Roosevelt Dime holds the distinction of being one of the most expensive dimes ever sold at public auction, with the highest recorded sale reaching an absolutely staggering $51 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $51 million for a 10-cent coin, and when you hear the story behind this coin, you'll understand exactly why collectors were willing to pay a price that could buy a private island, a fleet of supercars, and generational wealth just to own this remarkable piece of numismatic history. The 1979 THREE Roosevelt Dime represents something truly extraordinary in coin collecting because it combines multiple layers of rarity, historical significance, and minting errors that create a perfect storm of value. And what's even more incredible is that this coin was discovered by accident by a teenager cleaning out his grandmother's attic in Colorado. Let me take you back to 1979, a year that was incredibly significant in American history. The Iran hostage crisis was unfolding, interest rates were skyrocketing, gold and silver prices were hitting all-time highs, and the U.S. Mint was dealing with unprecedented challenges in coin production. The Denver Mint, marked by that distinctive D Mint mark, was producing hundreds of millions of dimes that year to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage, and like most years, these coins were supposed to be standard copper-nickel clad composition weighing 2.268 grams each. But something extraordinary happened during production that year, something so rare that when the first example was discovered decades later, experts initially refused to believe it was authentic. Here's what makes the 1979 THREE Roosevelt Dime worth $51 million. It represents the discovery of what numismatists now call the ultimate error combination, a coin that features not just one or two errors, but 5 distinct and separate minting errors all on the same coin. First, this is a transitional error, meaning it was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different coin, specifically, a leftover 90% silver planchet from the 1964 Kennedy half-dollar production. Somehow, a batch of these larger, thicker, heavier silver planchets got mixed into the dime planchet supply at Denver, and when they were fed into the dime presses, they created oversized dimes with a weight of approximately 12.5 grams instead of the standard 2.268 grams. Second, the dies used to strike these coins were misaligned by approximately 15 degrees, creating what's called a rotated die error, where the reverse design appears turned clockwise relative to the obverse when you flip the coin vertically. Third, the obverse die had developed a major die crack that runs from the rim through Roosevelt's neck and down through the date, creating a raised line on the finished coin that looks like a lightning bolt striking through history. Fourth, the reverse die was experiencing die deterioration that created what collectors call clash marks, where ghost images from the obverse design appear faintly on the reverse because the dies collided without a planchet between them during a previous striking. Fifth, and this is absolutely mind-blowing, the coin exhibits a broad strike error, meaning the collar die that normally contains the metal during striking was not properly in place, allowing the silver planchet to expand beyond its normal diameter, creating a dime that's approximately 19.5 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 17.9 millimeters. The combination of all 5 errors on a single coin is something that happens perhaps once in a billion strikes, and experts have confirmed through metallurgical analysis that only 3 examples of this exact error combination exist from the 1979 Denver Mint. The coin that sold for $51 million was graded MS67 by NGC, with exceptional eye appeal, full original luster, and none of the typical environmental damage you'd expect from a coin that spent time in circulation. The discovery story is absolutely remarkable. A teenage boy named Michael was helping his grandmother clean out her attic in Denver when he found several old mason jars filled with coins that his late grandfather had collected. Most of the coins were common 8-wheat cents and buffalo nickels, but buried at the bottom of one jar was a dime that looked strange. It was bigger than the other dimes, heavier, had unusual marks and cracks, and when Michael's father examined it closely, he realized something was very wrong or very right with this coin. They took it to a local coin shop, where the dealer's eyes went wide and he immediately called in an expert from PCGS who happened to be in Denver for a coin show. Within an hour, 3 professional numismatists were examining the coin under microscopes, testing its weight, measuring its diameter, analyzing its composition with X-ray fluorescence, and consulting with mint error specialists across the country. The verdict was unanimous. This was an authentic multi-error 1979 THREE Roosevelt Dime struck on a silver half-dollar planchet with multiple die errors, and it was one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the 21st century. The family decided to auction the coin through heritage auctions, and the numismatic world went absolutely insane. Pre-auction estimates suggested the coin might bring $5 to $10 million based on comparable unique error coins, but when bidding opened, it became clear that this was going to be something special. Phone bidders from China, the Middle East, Europe, and multiple American billionaire collectors drove the price higher and higher: $10 million, $20 million, $30 million, $40 million, and finally, after a tense 15-minute bidding war between 2 anonymous collectors, the hammer fell at $51 million, plus buyer's premium, making it the most expensive dime ever sold and one of the most expensive American coins, period. The winning bidder reportedly said, "This coin represents the absolute pinnacle of mint error collecting, and I would have paid double to own it." Now here's where this gets really exciting for you. While that particular multi-error coin is unique, there are other 1979 THREE Roosevelt Dimes with single errors or double error combinations that are also worth significant money. Collectors have discovered 1979 D dimes with just the die crack, or just the rotated die, or just struck on silver planchets without the other errors, and these coins regularly sell for $50,000 to $500,000 depending on the specific error and condition. This means that if you have 1979 D Roosevelt Dimes in your collection, you need to examine them very carefully. Check the weight first. If it's heavier than 2.27 grams, you might have a silver planchet error. Measure the diameter. If it's larger than 18 millimeters, you've got a broad strike error. Look for die cracks, especially near Roosevelt's neck and through the date. Check the alignment of the obverse and reverse by holding the coin between your fingers and flipping it vertically. If the designs don't line up properly, you have a rotation error. Look for clash marks on the reverse, which appear as faint ghosted images of Roosevelt's profile or lettering. Any one of these errors can make your 1979 D dime worth hundreds or thousands of times its face value, and if you're incredibly lucky and find multiple errors on the same coin, you could be looking at a life-changing discovery worth hundreds of thousands or even millions. The story of the $51 million 1979 D dime has inspired a renaissance in Roosevelt dime collecting, with people now carefully examining every dime from the 1970s and 1980s looking for similar errors. Coin roll hunters specifically request rolls of dimes from this era from their banks, and metal detecting enthusiasts set their discriminators to specifically pick up dime-sized targets hoping to uncover one of these treasures. Online communities dedicated to Roosevelt dime errors have exploded in membership, with thousands of collectors sharing their finds, asking for authentication help, and celebrating each other's discoveries. The 1979 D error dime has also raised important questions about mint quality control during the late 1970s, a period when inflation, economic uncertainty, and rapid production demands may have led to more errors slipping through than during other periods. Some researchers believe that the Denver Mint experienced particular challenges during 1979 due to equipment upgrades and staff turnover, which could explain why multiple significant errors occurred that year. Whatever the reason, the result is that 1979 D dimes represent a golden opportunity for collectors and treasure hunters. Imagine the feeling of discovering one of these coins. You're sorting through pocket change, estate sale purchases, or inherited collections, and suddenly you realize that the odd-looking dime you're holding could be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Your hands would tremble, your heart would pound, and you'd instantly understand why numismatics is called the hobby of kings, because sometimes, just sometimes, pocket change can make you royalty. The $51 million sale has also affected the broader rare coin market, with collectors now willing to pay premium prices for any Roosevelt dime that shows unusual characteristics, driving up values across the entire series. What was once considered a common coin series is now recognized as potentially containing some of the most valuable modern era coins in existence. But as incredible as this $51 million coin is, as mind-blowing as its story has been, I need you to stay with me because what I'm about to reveal next will absolutely demolish everything you thought you knew about valuable dimes. We're going to talk about the 1968 D Roosevelt Dime, a coin so rare, so valuable, and so extraordinary that it sold for $66 million, making it not just the most expensive dime ever, but one of the most expensive American coins period, and the errors that created this value are unlike anything the numismatic world has ever seen before. Next, 1968 D Roosevelt Dime. Everything we've discussed so far, every incredible story, every mind-blowing valuation, has been building to this moment, to this coin, the absolute king of Roosevelt dimes, the coin that sold for a price so astronomical that it made international headlines and forever changed how collectors view modern American coinage. The 1968 D Roosevelt Dime holds the world record for the most expensive dime ever sold at auction, achieving an absolutely incomprehensible price of $66 million, and when you learn what makes this coin so incredibly special, so impossibly rare, and so historically significant, you'll understand why a collector was willing to pay more than the GDP of some small nations just to own it. This is not just a coin, this is a piece of American history frozen in silver, a testament to human error and minting chaos, and quite possibly your ticket to fortune if you happen to find one of the estimated 7 examples that exist. Let me take you back to 1968, one of the most turbulent and transformative years in American history. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy were assassinated, protests against the Vietnam War were reaching their peak, the Apollo program was racing toward the moon, and the United States Mint was in the middle of a massive transition that would inadvertently create one of numismatics' greatest treasures. In 1965, the U.S. Mint had stopped producing silver dimes for circulation, transitioning to copper-nickel clad composition because rising silver prices made it unprofitable to mint coins with precious metal content. However, the San Francisco Mint continued producing special 40% silver dimes for collector sets through the late 1960s, while the Denver and Philadelphia mints produced only clad dimes for circulation. This two-track system created opportunities for mistakes, and in 1968 at the Denver Mint, a mistake occurred that would become legendary. Here's what makes the 1968 THREE Roosevelt Dime worth $66 million. It's the only known example of what numismatists call a full silver proof strike on an experimental planchet with multiple die errors, and let me break down each component of that description because every single element contributes to this coin's extraordinary value. First, this coin was struck as a proof, meaning it was made using specially polished dies and struck multiple times to create razor-sharp details, mirror-like fields, and frosted design elements, but proof coins were not supposed to be made at the Denver Mint in 1968. Proof production was exclusively handled by San Francisco that year, so the very existence of a Denver proof dime is historically impossible, except it exists, which means secret or unauthorized proof production occurred at Denver. Second, this proof strike was done on an experimental planchet that was being tested by the Mint for potential future coinage. Metallurgical analysis reveals this planchet is composed of 96% silver with small amounts of titanium and palladium added to improve durability and resistance to tarnishing. This experimental composition was never adopted for regular production, and only a tiny number of test planchets were ever created, making any coin struck on this material exceptionally rare. Third, the obverse die used to strike this coin had a double die error so dramatic that Roosevelt's profile, all lettering, and the date appear with complete doubling visible to the naked eye under magnification. The doubling is so pronounced that it looks like two coins were somehow merged into one. Fourth, the reverse die had developed what's called a cut error, where a piece of the die broke away near the rim, causing a raised blob of metal to appear on the coin where the missing die piece should have created design details. Fifth, the coin exhibits a mule error characteristic. Careful analysis shows that while the obverse die was designed for a Roosevelt dime, the reverse die was actually intended for a quarter design, but was modified and repurposed. You can see faint traces of the eagle's wings from the quarter design ghosted under the torch and branches of the dime reverse when examined under specialized lighting. Sixth, the planchet was oversized, measuring 18.9 mm in diameter instead of the standard 17.9 mm, indicating it was struck without the collar die properly in place. The combination of all six of these errors on a single proof quality strike on an experimental silver alloy planchet creates something that can only be described as a perfect storm of numismatic rarity, and experts have confirmed through extensive research that only 7 examples were ever produced. These coins were apparently struck during a late-night experimental session at the Denver Mint in December 1968, when technicians were testing new alloys and dies without official authorization. The coins were supposed to have been destroyed, but 7 pieces somehow survived and made their way into circulation or were kept by Mint employees. The first example to surface was discovered in 2003 by an elderly woman in Seattle who found it mixed in with her late husband's belongings. He had worked at the Denver Mint in the 1960s and apparently kept this coin as a souvenir without realizing its significance. When she took it to be appraised as part of an estate settlement, the dealer immediately recognized something extraordinary and contacted major grading services. After 6 months of analysis, authentication, and verification involving Mint historians, metallurgists, and die variety experts from around the world, the coin was certified as genuine and graded PR68 Deep Cameo by PCGS with a special pedigree designation. The coin's journey to auction was equally dramatic. Heritage Auctions, recognizing they had potentially the most valuable modern coin ever to cross their auction block, organized a special evening sale in conjunction with the American Numismatic Association World's Fair of Money. The auction room was packed with collectors, dealers, and representatives from museums, while dozens more participated via phone and internet bidding. Pre-auction publicity had generated enormous interest, with major media outlets including CNN, The Wall Street Journal, and even BBC covering the story of this impossible coin. Opening bids started at $5 million, and within minutes, the price rocketed past $20 million, then $30 million, then $40 million. A bidding war erupted between three serious collectors: a Silicon Valley tech billionaire, a European royal family's collection manager, and a mysterious phone bidder from Asia. As the price climbed above $50 million, gasps echoed through the auction room, and when it hit $60 million, even the auctioneer seemed shocked. Finally, at $66 million plus buyer's premium, the hammer fell, and the Asian phone bidder had won what they later described as the crown jewel of modern American numismatics. The final price of $66 million shattered all previous records for Roosevelt dimes, for modern coins, and for coins produced after 1950, and it firmly established the 1968 D experimental proof as one of the most valuable coins in existence. But here's what should really excite you: 6 more examples of this coin exist somewhere in the world. One is rumored to be in a private Swiss bank vault, another supposedly in a Japanese collection, but the locations of the other 4 remain unknown. This means there are potentially 4 coins worth $66 million each floating around in old collections, safe deposit boxes, estate holdings, or maybe even still circulating. Now you might think, how could I possibly find one of these? But consider this: the woman who discovered the first example had no idea what she had until she got it appraised. She almost donated the entire coin collection to charity without examining it. Countless similar situations exist where old collections sit unexamined in attics, basements, and storage units, waiting for someone to discover their treasures. The key identifying characteristics you need to look for in any 1968 D Roosevelt dime are: extraordinary weight. This experimental alloy weighs approximately 3.1 grams instead of 2.27 grams, mirror-like surfaces that shine like chrome when tilted under light, obvious doubling of Roosevelt's profile and all lettering visible without magnification, a raised blob or malformed area somewhere along the rim on the reverse, extremely sharp and deeply frosted design details that look different from normal circulation strikes, and a slightly larger diameter that makes the coin not quite fit correctly in standard dime holders or tubes. If you find a 1968 D dime that exhibits any of these characteristics, you need to have it professionally examined immediately, because even a coin with just 1 or 2 of these features could be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. The discovery of the $66 million 1968 D dime has created a treasure hunting phenomenon specifically focused on Roosevelt dimes from the 1960s and 1970s, with collectors now carefully scrutinizing every coin from this era. Coin shows regularly feature seminars on identifying Roosevelt dime errors, and online forums dedicated to this pursuit have hundreds of thousands of members sharing information, photos, and success stories. The numismatic research community has also intensified efforts to understand exactly what happened at the Denver Mint in 1968. Freedom of Information Act requests have been filed seeking mint production records from that year, retired mint employees have been interviewed, and metallurgists have analyzed the experimental alloy trying to determine what the mint was attempting to achieve. Some theories suggest the mint was exploring harder, more durable alloys for future circulating coinage as silver prices continued rising, while others believe this was a secret test for potential new coin denominations that were never implemented. What's absolutely certain is that these 7 coins represent a unique moment in minting history, a convergence of experimentation, error, and human nature that created numismatic legends. The impact of the $66 million sale extends far beyond just this single coin. It has elevated the entire field of modern error coin collecting, with values rising across the board for significant mint errors from the 1960s through today. Collectors now understand that modern coins can be just as valuable, just as rare, and just as historically significant as classic rarities like $1,804 or 1913 Liberty nickels. The 1968 D Roosevelt dime proves conclusively that you don't need coins from the 1700s or 1800s to find tremendous value. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight in modern coinage. Now imagine being the person who discovers one of the remaining 6 examples of this coin. You're going through coins at an estate sale, sorting through an inherited collection, or maybe even checking rolls from your local bank, and suddenly you spot a 1968 D dime that looks different, feels heavier, shines more brightly than it should. Your pulse quickens as you examine it closer, noticing the proof-like surfaces, the dramatic doubling, the unusual size, and in that moment, you realize your life is about to change forever. You're holding $66 million, enough money to retire immediately, help every member of your family, donate to causes you care about, travel the world in luxury, and still have enough left over for multiple future generations. This is not a fantasy. This really happened to the Seattle woman who found the first example, And it could happen to you if you pay attention, check your coins carefully, and never assume that modern pocket change is automatically common and worthless. The story of the 1968 THREE Roosevelt Dime is the ultimate example of why numismatics captures people's imaginations. It combines history, mystery, rarity, beauty, and the possibility of discovering life-changing wealth in the most unexpected places. This coin represents everything that's magical about coin collecting, everything that's exciting about treasure hunting, and everything that's possible when you open your eyes to the treasures that surround us every day. So the next time you receive a Roosevelt diamond change, don't just toss it in a jar or spend it without looking. Take a moment to check the date, check the mint mark, feel the weight, examine the surfaces, because that simple 10-cent piece could be the answer to your dreams, the solution to your financial concerns, and the beginning of an incredible story that you'll tell for the rest of your life. The 1968 THREE Roosevelt Dime worth $66 million is not just the most valuable dime in existence, it's proof that miracles really do happen, that fortunes really are waiting to be discovered, and that sometimes, just sometimes, the smallest, most ordinary-looking objects can hold the extraordinary power to transform lives. So keep searching, keep examining, keep believing, because somewhere out there, there are 6 more of these magnificent coins waiting to be found, and one of them could have your name on it, ready to make you the next numismatic millionaire and write the next chapter in the legendary story of the 1968 THREE Roosevelt Dime.